Lots of things happening today. Start of Sober October, obviously. Start of autumn as well. Well, it feels like it anyway. And a very big birthday today. A very happy birthday to former US President Jimmy Carter, who would have turns 100 today. And of course, one of the highlights of his first year in office was a trip that he made to the northeast.
It was the president's own wish to visit the people of Newcastle on Tyne in northern England. Today, the Northerners extend to the president the freedom of the city of Newcastle. The ceremony at once is charged with cheerfulness and good humour. Even the weather stays sunny and spring-like. The president touches Geordie hearts when he opens his speech of thanks with a Tyneside football war cry.
Away the lads. I'm very grateful to be a Geordie now, and I'm deeply grateful at the tremendous welcome that you've extended to me and to the other visitors who've come here from the United States. I'm proud to be presented the freedoms of your community. I feel as though I'm one of you, and I will never forget the wonderful welcome that you have extended to me. Good luck to you. We share a great future together. Thank you very much.
God, that's an incredible moment. When somebody who has followed President Carter's career over the years is Ian Houston, who's a UK columnist and commentator and honorary professor at the University of the West of Scotland, based in the Washington, D.C. area. 100 is good going, isn't it, Ian?
Oh, my goodness. It's extraordinary. It's nice to be with you. And yes, as you say, happy birthday to President Carter and his family as well. What an extraordinary family they are.
It is a big one. And this was a massive moment in history for the Northeast, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Now, he's the oldest living president, U.S. president in American history. So he's a genuine embodiment of the standard of serving people. It was that spirit I think he brought to Newcastle. It was such an extraordinary visit from those clips. It was hugely motivating to him. Him coming to Newcastle 6 months after his inauguration in 1977. Now, as we've talked about, some extraordinary Americans have come to Newcastle. Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, we talked about that before a few months back. But no U.S. president, either before or since, had come to Tyneside. So he, from that clip, he was officially adopted as a Geordie, granted that sort of honorary citizenship in a way. He joked at the time that they just want to be clear he wasn't going to be paying taxes with that, but it was cherished. In fact, the document that he received when being granted that status is in the Carter Library. It's in a wooden chest that was given to him as well, so a piece of paper that he treasured. And so the staff there are incredible at the Carter Library just to preserve it.
And for people to kind of gauge an understanding of why he chose, our fabulous city, why did he choose Newcastle? Why did he choose the Northeast? Why did he choose Newcastle?
Yeah, it's such a good question because there wasn't really that much of a precedent. Well, I think he was such a fan of Dr. King, of others. He was aware of Dr. King. Of course, he had the connection to Atlanta as Dr. King did. So he really tracked Dr. King's life and knew that Dr. King had this close relationship with Newcastle, with the university. So he would have known that. But really, very specifically, he was part of a program that he had launched just before with Rosalind Carter, another extraordinary individual, called the Friendship Force. The Friendship Force was designed to build an understanding between people in the U.S. and the rest of the world. So it was people-to-people diplomacy, not wealthy influencers, but just simple people. And the Friendship Force was designed to do that. And one of the first cities to become involved was Newcastle. So the Friendship Force was created by the Carters, by Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter. And so he was there to launch it and to speak to people about that. And it really was quite extraordinary, the legacy he left. In the first years of that program that he created, it was about 760 individuals who became part of those initial groups of the first years. So people would stay in each other's homes, experience each other's jobs, and learn about life in a foreign country. And by July of 1977, just a couple of months after he visited, there were were about 300 people from the Northeast that jetted off to Atlanta to be a part of the program. So 300 people. So it really was emblematic of his view of the world, of connecting people together. And that's an extraordinary legacy that he left, and it's directly connected to Newcastle.
Absolutely. And we pride ourselves on being friendly in the Northeast, and I don't think it's a myth. I've lived elsewhere, and I don't think it's a myth. I think it's true. But that idea of understanding other people's lives has never been more important, really. I think there's so much polarization now that a bit of empathy and understanding would go a long way now. And that was very close to his heart and Rosalind's heart, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you that sentiment, the idea that politics needs to be a vehicle for bringing people together across perspectives. And first and foremost, we're friends, we're human beings, and we can solve problems better together if we respect one another and have empathy for each other. I think it's a type of politics he brought. Remember, of course, he came, President Ford had been in office for 2 years, but Carter was a transition president after the Nixon era, where a lot of people had lost trust in government. So Jimmy Carter brought a message to Washington about people and what government was about, to serve people. And while his presidency, I think historians will look at it and say, well, it was a challenging presidency for a variety of reasons. I think the overall assessment of a presidency needs to be not just the 4 or 8 years that a president serves, or even a prime minister might serve, but what they do after. What do they do as a result of holding the levers of power, of holding that office? And so as I look at President Carter, I think I would say that he is one of the best American presidents in U.S. history because of what he did after the presidency, how he continued, and that what we're talking about, of bringing people together, of serving people, and that he's turning 100 today. The longevity of his service post-presidency is quite remarkable, what he and Rosalind did to serve people in need around the world. And that, I think, for me, elevates his presidency and elevates him as a human being who happened to be president. And so I think that must be a standard of an assessment of the president. And there are some current figures now that we say, well, maybe you haven't lived up to the office and what the spirit of the office should be about based on what you've done following your presidency.
That's very interesting, and I know you've written widely about this work that he's done, Ian, so people can find your work and can find all about what they did. And I mentioned that you're based in Washington, D.C., just very briefly, and obviously BBC, impartial. I wonder what you make at the moment and what it is like over there, because, we have Americast, and by the way, if you listen to the show now and you've never listened to Americast, have a listen on BBC Sounds. It's very interesting, because whatever happens in America affects us, wherever we are. A president came to Newcastle, and whatever happens over there affects the rest of the world. What is it like there at the minute? Because it seems so divisive.
I think that it is, politics is by its nature divisive. It's combative and conflictual. But the time right now, there has been a real alignment with partisanship. People are not moving across parties as they do a little bit more in the UK. You saw the recent elections and previous elections in the UK, where people do cross over occasionally from party to party, based on where they feel things are going. But individuals here are so deeply entrenched in partisanship. There's a lack of ability to or desire to move from Republican, Democrat, Republican. And so that's a challenge. But I think overall what I would say is the sentiment is a challenge. I think President Carter, if we bring it back to him, he's an individual who is just simply trying so hard, he has said this, to hang on so he can cast his ballot for Kamala Harris, the first African Indian American woman to lead her party's ticket for the presidency. He believes in her message of hope, of bringing people together, of unity. He feels that she is emblematic of something that he believed in. And for him, it's a remarkable opportunity, I think, to witness the opportunity of a African-American and Indian-American woman to be elected president who is upholding the principles that he cared so much about. So I'm a person who believes in hope, and I believe that bringing people together is the way to go, friendship, and that's on his birthday. Something I think we always need to remember, just kindness, being warm to one another, and the fact that we link it to Newcastle. And like you say, Newcastle for me is such a wonderful, warm, kind place, and I think President Carter witnessed that. And it's up to all of us to sort of carry that flame and go forward with it.
Absolutely. Ian, a joy chatting to you, always is. And you can find out more about Ian's work. Has written widely about President Carter, widely about that visit as well, right here to our Northeast. Thank you so much, Ian, for coming on the programme. That is Ian Houston, Houston. Happy birthday, 100 years old.